What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Well Man's Podcast. This is a continuation of last week's podcast where we're going to talk about dementia, Alzheimer's, and get into conventional, unconventional treatments and the like. So if you didn't listen to last week's, go ahead and take a step back, listen to last week's, and this information will coincide with that. So we're happy to be here today. Again, my name is Brian Brosey, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Keone Tita. Keone, how are you today?
Doing great. Thanks, everybody, for listening in. I and Brian, we are going to go over, let's just review quickly with dementia, right?
Perfect.
I mean, the main thing is that it is an epidemic. It is a disease of aging. As far as conventional thought on the whole disease is we really are not quite clear on how it develops. We really don't have a cure for it. And right now, conventional treatment is mostly just symptom management. And so, as is our bias, is Brian and I at least think that the best way to treat any type of illness is through a number of things, through prevention, conventional treatment, and then unconventional treatment that has some evidence around it. And especially unconventional treatment that's certainly not going to do any harm.
Yeah.
So let's go into some of the conventional treatment.
Okay.
So there's a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, right? And acetylcholine, you can think of this as this new neurotransmitter that's needed for quick communication and memory and that type of thing. And with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, this seems to be depleted. Right. So one form of treatment would be give something that inhibits the breakdown of enzymes that break down acetylcholine. Right. So these things are called acetylcholine esterase inhibitors. And they're typically the first line of treatment with Alzheimer's disease. So they prevent the breakdown of acetylcholine, that neurotransmitter.
Okay. Now, Kieran, you said it's kind of like our first line of treatment. At what point is someone... Yeah, at where in dementia would someone be prescribed maybe one of these acetylcholine inhibitors?
So it's gonna be mild to moderate kind of dementia, and I would think mild to moderate dementia is gonna be the thing. But just to make it practical for people, is gonna be where people are becoming noticeably forgetful, to the point where it concerns family members may be presenting a possible danger to themselves, so that's where I would kind of go with that.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of a gray area, but mild to moderate Alzheimer's. So, and that's first line of treatment with conventional treatment. Really, treatment we're going to get into should start way before you even get on the med, and with unconventional treatment. And unconventional treatment should be used in conjunction with these, drugs. And so what are these acetylcholine esterase inhibitors? Well, one of them is called Aricept, Exelon, Razidine, and there's studies out there that say that they just help with managing the symptoms. Again, they don't halt or reverse anything. All right. So mild to moderate, but what if it's pretty severe? What if the symptoms are pretty severe? What are the treatments then? We talked about the drug Namenda. That is an NMDA receptor blocker. Okay, so that stands for N-methyl D-aspartate, NMDA. And so what we're doing is we are using this drug to block a receptor that will decrease the formation. What is it of the NMDA?
Okay.
So anyway, this is for more severe forms of Alzheimer's, and so it's like pretty much end stage.
We don't want the high levels of NMDA, and this blocks it, is what we're saying, at the receptor.
Yep, and it blocks it at the receptor. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Yes.
Yep.
So those are the main, like when you say like Alzheimer's drugs, those are the main meds here. But then there's other medications that can help manage symptoms. Okay, so a lot of these things, so NSAIDs, so we know there's an inflammatory component to these things. So any type of thing that lowers inflammation can help. Okay.
Okay.
One big single molecule that is associated with inflammation is tumor necrosis factor. Okay, and there's a drug that inhibits the development of that, and that is Enbrel. So this is a biological inhibitor of that cytokine, which is tumor necrosis factor. So that's one way to do it. So if there's a lot of this cytokine floating around, you're going to be highly inflamed, achy joints. They use it for really bad forms of arthritis and stuff. But again, if you can lower this cytokine, it seems to help, and it seems to support the creation of new neurons, seems to support the transmission of neural communication. So that acetylcholine, it helps with that. It helps with helping the nerves function appropriately.
Okay.
There's another one that we've heard of, lithium. It's basically a mood stabilizer. A lot of times it's used for bipolar disorder or major depression. It seems to have neuroprotective effects, at least in animal models and other research. We also know with dementia, certain hormones are significantly decreased, right? So we talked about this before too. This is getting more into the unconventional treatment, but hormones like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, that type of thing, those things decline with age. And a lot of those hormones have been shown to preserve nerve function. So we'll use a lot of those hormones too.
Okay.
Going back to the conventional treatment, some of the things to help with
were those all conventional treatments, or do we?
Well, those kind of play both. I mean, when I'm talking about progesterone, estrogen, those things are kind of
Gotcha.
Those are natural molecules.
I see what you're saying.
And so from a conventional standpoint, you may think about, well, if those things decrease and we know that they may preserve nerve function, why don't we just give something that either mimics those hormones or give the real thing?
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. So these things are, again, just symptom management and haven't shown like a huge benefit, but certainly can help and may play a big role in prevention too, right? So if your hormones start decreasing and you're at high risk, maybe if there's a need for hormone replacement, that may help. So what else? This is kind of interesting to me. There's a drug out there called tamoxifen. It's actually called it's called a SERM. It's a selective estrogen receptor modulator. But it's been noted, that drug has been noted to protect neurons from the debris that builds up in the cells. So we talked about that before, like the amyloid beta and even the amino acid, the neurotransmitter glutamate, and preventing toxicity to the neurons from that. So there's a role there. We talked about infections also being a problem, right? So maybe some antibiotics can help. There's a lot of research going in the vaccines with helping clear that amyloid beta and the debris from the buildup in the cells. So if we clear that, we clear out that cellular junk, the thought is that things are going to get much better.
And that buildup of that specific cellular junk is something that happens in everyone, not just dementia. Is that correct? Or
well, you are correct. You are correct. As we age, we do tend to not be as efficient with clearing out that cellular debris. Okay. But the amyloid beta is found in the brains in very, very high amounts in people
specific to the
so it's pretty specific. Yeah. What else? There are, again, we talked about the anti-inflammatory meds. Let's see. There's certain drugs out there like paracetam that's been demonstrated to have small benefit on models of neurological disorders. What else? There's a drug called rapamycin, right? That it's an immunosuppressive drug. It also improves the removal of cellular debris. It also enhances the process called autophagy, or autophagy is another way to pronounce that. And it's basically where it's cellular debris gets removed, and may also help apoptosis, where cells that aren't working get cleared and get replaced. I think that's pretty much it for the conventional stuff. Have I missed anything with that? I think that's pretty much it. I mean, the two main treatments are keeping acetylcholine around, so the acetylcholinesterase inhibitors, right?
Okay.
And then the NMDA blockers, receptor blockers. So
okay.
That one's the drugs. Those are the two main things.
Okay, so overall, the two main things are just keeping the acetylcholine from breaking down, and then as well as that NMDA receptor, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what about unconventional then?
So unconventional, yeah. Let's hit that. This is my passion. I know it's part of your passion too. We already talked about like hormonal treatments. We talked about the hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Those hormones, we know that they decrease with age, and they all help with optimizing neuronal function. So these things have healthy brain effects. So the thought being that if we can keep these levels up, it will help with brain function. But there's also other hormones out there that may help and are perceived as safer, like pregnenolone. It's a precursor hormone to the sex hormones. This is something that you certainly don't need a prescription for, and it is a precursor to all those other hormones plus DHEA. And again, it seems to promote neuronal function and optimize it. And that's a very safe thing. I mean, in my clinic, we use a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not sure you're going to see a wow factor if somebody has mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease, but it's certainly not going to hurt, and it may help. So you may see improvement with that.
I got a question about, so we're saying pregnenolone is kind of one of those precursors to the sex hormones. As far as things like precursors, and like I've heard this with other supplements like testosterone supplements and things like that being precursors to testosterone, the hormone. How do these precursors, I guess, pick and choose where they are going to go, if that makes sense? So if like this pregnenolone precursor, how does it, it is involved in so many different sex hormones. Is it just the lowest level gets replenished? Is it, I'm sure it's large metabolic.
Brian, that's a great question, because here's the answer. We typically don't know. The thought is if those hormones are low, like estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and people don't want to go on those hormones, either the synthetics or the bioidentical hormones, that given pregnenolone may boost those levels up. And the thought is that there's an intelligence to the body, so to speak, that is going to optimize where that pregnenolone goes. That may or may not be true.
Okay.
But what we do know is there are, there's some research that pregnenolone directly influences acetylcholine in several key brain areas. And then also there's some research shows pregnenolone promotes the new nerve growth. So that's pregnenolone itself. That's not necessarily,
the next thing, the next step.
Waiting for it to convert into one of those other hormones down the line. So, but yeah, It's a good question, because this is the thought with a lot of things. Like, it's easy enough to give a supplement, but how are we convinced it's going to do the right thing and go where it go? That's a big problem with calcium. We've talked about that before. If you give too much calcium, we're not so sure it's going to go to the bone. It may deposit in the soft tissue. And there's things you can do to help prevent that. But as far as with the hormones, I'm not sure. I think you can kind of gear those hormones to go where they need to go based on like keeping healthy lifestyle stuff, which we'll talk about in just a second. Okay. So the other hormone out there that you certainly can get over the counter is DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone, DHEA. Again, has neuroprotective effects. Studies indicate, again, like with most hormones, that people with Alzheimer's have lower levels of this hormone. In animal models, it's shown to improve memory. So that's it. Again, I can't see how this would hurt. Most people could probably benefit as they get older taking DHEA anyway.
Yeah.
So.
And it would help you in Scrabble. You would definitely win. Looking at dehydroepiandrosterone spelled out.
That's right.
So it helps your memory. It's going to help you win the Scrabble
See?
game.
Scrabble tips, yeah. Another hormone that I'm sure people have heard about is melatonin. And, most people think about melatonin helping regulate the sleep-wake cycle. It's also a very, very strong antioxidant. That in itself may have some benefit for brains that are inflamed, right? What else about it? Lower levels are associated with a higher degree of cognitive impairment. So you want to keep melatonin around. Melatonin you can certainly get over the counter. We know that it's lower in Alzheimer's patients. In animal studies, melatonin's improved cognitive function, reduced oxidative injury, and also reduced that cellular trash, amyloid beta. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's not going to hurt. I've dosed melatonin very, very high in people, and it's very, very safe for the most part. And so the other form of the cellular trash was the tau protein buildup. So it's even been shown to reduce that.
Wow.
So those things, I can't think of an instance where melatonin, and I could be wrong, I'm not an expert in this, but I can't think of an instance where melatonin, DHEA, and pregnenolone, or any of those other hormones are going to cause a problem with the conventional treatment, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we've mentioned, especially with the NMDA receptor blockers and the acetylcholinesterase inhibitors.
Yeah.
So. And these aren't even be my first line of treatment unconventionally. They would be, kind of down the line, but it's certainly not going to hurt to be on melatonin. So as a naturopathic physician or functional medicine practitioner, you can look at all these things and go, wow, well, these things will help. And a lot of times people that are going through this, they're just seeing their conventional doctor. They don't know about this research on some of these natural products that they can actually get themselves, and it may help.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, it may be a significant change.
I know for each individual is definitely individual, but
Yeah.
in your experience, most of the things that we've gone through here, you're able to just give as an adjunct to their conventional treatment and doesn't
For the most part. Yeah.
Okay.
For the most part. Yeah. Generally, you're going to be, with the stuff that I mentioned now, you're going to be fairly safe when it applies to Alzheimer's in and of itself. Again, a lot of people have many different things that they're coming in for. So you have to really, really check that out, right? And make sure that you're not doing anything that can harm them. But for Alzheimer's, no, you shouldn't have any problem with that. It's always like, weigh the risk benefit ratio.
Yeah, absolutely. I've learned in my first week at clinic that no one walks in with just shoulder pain.
Right.
So they've got hypertension or they got something in there.
Right. And in my mind, all that kind of, they contribute to each other and possibly potentiate the problems.
Yep.
So, all right. So let's just go into some lifestyle stuff real quick here, because there is one diet out there, one diet I think that rules them all as far as health. It's not the diet that, is a cure for Alzheimer's or anything like that, but it's certainly a diet that has some research that shows that it can prevent almost all chronic disease, and that is the Mediterranean diet. So if somebody asks me what is the best diet out there based on research, I would be wrong saying it's not the Mediterranean diet. That's false. It is not the Italian-American diet, I can tell you that, all right? That's not the stereotypical Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet tends to be slow carb intake, so it's going to be whole grains primarily, but it's going to be lower than that. It's going to be, think about it as a high phytonutrient based diet with olive oil. non-starchy vegetables, low glycemic index fruits. Think you could throw some red wine in there, maybe.
Maybe.
Lots of. Well, it depends. For some people, alcohol can be a double-edged sword. Fish, lean meats. One study of the Mediterranean diet showed a 28% lower risk of developing cognitive impairment over a 4.5-year period. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Wow.
That's with diet alone.
Mm-hmm.
It also appears that the Mediterranean diet lowers mortality rate in Alzheimer's. So that's pretty cool too. So, so it's doing something, whether you have, it's not just a lifestyle for prevention. You can think about it as also for treatment. So one study here, I have notes on Alzheimer's patients who did the Mediterranean diet for 4.4 years were 76%, I think is the number, less likely to die than those whose adherence was least to that diet. So that's huge.
Yeah, wow.
And
so, but you ran through it, but we're talking high phytonutrient.
High phytonutrient diet. That's like high plant-based fruits and vegetable type diet. Olive oils, a good olive oil is packed full of phytonutrients. A good red wine is packed full of phytonutrients. A colorful diet.
Yeah, Keone, super summer salt, magical, insane, awesome salad. Yeah.
Go check that podcast out, the Rainbow Triple Somersault Salad. We have a podcast on that.
I apologize for messing up the name. I tried. I need to take more of the melatonin and the.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. We'll get you that. Another diet that, okay, now here's a diet where we're getting more specific for neurological disorders, and that's the ketogenic diet. Mm-hmm. So the brain, we've talked about this on podcasts, mm-hmm. but the brain seems to like running off of ketones instead of just sugar all the time. And so ketones are substances that are produced when the body breaks down fat instead of glucose for energy. And a lot of times to get in the ketogenic state, you can eat a higher fat diet or fast. We talked about intermittent fasting and get there. And this seems to help optimize nerve function. So one study, in an animal model, 43 days on a ketogenic diet, this was a mouse model, resulted in ketone production and decreased cellular debris, the amyloid beta. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's some neat research on the neuronal optimizing effects of this type of diet. Mm-hmm. And then there's so many other benefits to this diet, but this diet, as opposed to the Mediterranean diet, I just don't think it's sustainable long term. For most people, at least in my clinical experience.
Yeah, I would agree.
The diet originally came out, was used for kids with chronic epilepsy. So for certain conditions, it is a diet that you really have to adhere to long term. Is there any danger of being on this diet long term? We haven't found any problem with this diet long term thus far. Keep in mind, some people certainly can go overboard. It's a high fat diet, so fat has a lot of calories. So you really have to, if you're doing this type of diet for weight loss, I think you also have to watch
the source.
You have to watch the source, and you're going to have to, no matter how you get around it, you have to be in a caloric deficit, right? So, all right. So here's another diet is a low calorie diet. I bring it up. I'm not a advocate of a low calorie diet because I think you can get rebound weight gain effects. But again, low calorie with just caloric restriction in general, and we know caloric restriction in general in itself in almost all animal models is anti-aging. And it's not only anti-aging for the whole body, it's anti-aging for the brain. Okay. And me and you've talked about this. I think one of the best way to go into caloric restriction without adding stress to your body is intermittent fasting, because you can't catch up after a while if you make that a lifestyle. So we're going to start seeing a lot of research, I think, come out with intermittent fasting, which is a form of caloric restriction. It's not long-term caloric restriction, showing that it has tremendous benefit for the brain. We're already seeing that. So lowering your calories. The other thing we mentioned in podcasts, we said, what is the number one cause of chronic disease? And, we can just go right to make it real simple for people. It's chronic consumption of calories. Just plain and simple, chronic consumption of calories plays a big, big role in chronic disease, including dementia. So here we go with our passion, Brian. The next thing lifestyle-wise is exercise.
Yes.
I mean, there's so much research on exercise and brain health. And one of the big things that exercise does is it increases a neurotrophic factor, a number of neurotrophic factors, but the main one is BDNF, right? Brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Just flexing your muscles and moving your muscles or any type of exercise is going to cause a huge secretion of that. And as the name implies, what are you doing? You're growing new neurons. You're enhancing neuroplasticity. You're improving brain volume. The nerves are connecting with other neurons in the brain to help with cellular communication. It improves vascular function also. And it causes a reduction in cell death. I mean, all you have to do for this one is exercise, which is incredible. So research in Alzheimer's found reduced brain atrophy, right? So the brain in Alzheimer's patients shrinks, in dementia patients shrinks, but it found that this is significantly reduced with exercise. And they showed, this is crazy, they showed as little as 3 minutes of very intense exercise showed a sharp rise in this bone-derived neurotrophic factor, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And then it improved like a 20 to 30% improvement in memory, which is really, really freaking cool. And then when you combine it with another, what I call brain substance out there, omega-3 fatty acids and plant polyphenols going back to the Mediterranean diet, very high in plant polyphenols. The exercise and the omega-3s and the Mediterranean type diet showed a significant impact on kind of optimizing the brain derived neurotrophic factor, which is great for your brain. So, what does that do? Like we said, it's going to just help optimize neuronal function, help optimize brain function.
Yep. And there's a bunch of studies that kind of give you a prescription of like intensity and what was the outcome of that as far as how much BDNF was
that's cool.
derived and things. I mean, kind of like this study you have from, winter in 2007.
Yep.
The BDNF levels with the intense exercise in 3 minutes. I remember seeing some in school where it was like 30 minutes of 60% of your heart rate max was a 20% increase in BDNF or something like that.
That's neat.
Don't quote me on the numbers there, but there's a variety of sources that can give you an idea of what you should be doing to get certain levels of BDNF increase.
Yeah, and I would say if you're not even sure or don't even know what does intense for 3 minutes actually mean, just any form of exercise brings this up.
Yep.
But a good rule of thumb for me that I like that we've done through Metabolic Effect is just like intense exercise is exercise pretty much when you get to the level where it's uncomfortable to talk while you're doing it. Or where you're going from, where you have to get to the place where you rest, and you definitely go from nose breathing to mouth breathing or something like that. So you're getting up in intensity with those signs.
Okay, excellent. But like you mentioned, even a walk on the beach can increase that BDNF.
That's exactly right. So I want to go over some nutraceutical interventions and just talk briefly about studies. One particular one is derived from a plant called Huperzine serrata. The compound is called Huperzine A. Okay, this is actually a natural form of Namenda, okay, which is the NMDA receptor blocker. And it also seems to also prevent that glutamate toxicity that may occur in the brain. It can also lower. I mean, it's pretty neat with the studies, but it seems to lower the breakdown of acetylcholine too. So that's crazy. So you'll see this particular plant compound in a lot of memory type vitamin nutritional formulas.
Yeah.
So the mechanism of action is really similar to all those Alzheimer's drugs that we've mentioned, right? So that's a neat thing. It's Very, very safe. What else can we say about that? I think the doses they were using was 300 to 500 micrograms of Huperzine A showed a significant improvement in cognitive test scores in Alzheimer's patients in some of the studies. So that's not a very big dose.
No, okay, yeah. Is this the one where, and I can't remember if it's Huperzine, but there's like a memory supplement that can also decrease your motivation? Does that
I'm not
ring a
sure.
bell to you?
I'm not sure
Okay.
about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. There's a few of them, actually.
There's one I was trying at one point in school, and I can't remember if it was Huperzine or what it was called. I think it was Huperzine, though, but I could easily be getting it wrong. And it just helped my memory for sure. Motivation was crazy to see it like plummet and like not be able to necessarily control it or feel that it was happening. But it was
Right.
definitely happening, like the lethargicness
Oh,
in
that's
my head.
interesting.
It was just, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything where that with any of these memory nutraceuticals where that would happen, but it is interesting to note. Yeah, if you know that, let me know also what that may have been for you. But the other one is lion's mane. This is a mushroom. It's a medicinal mushroom. It's been used traditionally in Asia for a long time to help improve memory. So there's some studies that show that these compounds lower lipids, help with they act as antioxidants, they're neuroprotective, so and then they boost your immune system too. So there may be some benefit there. Let's see, what studies can we say about that? A mouse model study with Alzheimer's disease, 30 days of oral administration of this mushroom extract reduced the production and deposition of the amyloid beta in animal brains and supported the growth of brain cells. And then longer term administration of it for 5 months helped recover cognitive decline in the same study. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's a mouse model, but that's really, really neat if you're starting to see some reversal of the symptoms there.
Right.
Again, you're talking about a very safe thing to take or try.
Mm-hmm.
And there's quite a few studies on that mushroom. And then some of the more stereotypical nutraceuticals that I tend to think of when we're talking about optimizing nerve function, we'll use them a lot in like disorders like peripheral neuropathy, is lipoic acid and acetyl L-carnitine. Both of these are antioxidants, so they help with oxidative stress. And let's see, the typical dose is around 600 milligrams of lipoic acid. And one study here, 9 patients with Alzheimer's or similar dementia took this 600 milligrams of lipoic acid for an average of almost a year, and cognitive scores were declining, but at the onset, by the end, they had stabilized. And then we saw that the disease progression was significantly inhibited in another study. So that's cool. I mean, again, that's not going to hurt anything to do.
Right.
Take. And 600 milligrams isn't that much, and that's typically a dose you'll find in 1 or 2 caps of taking lipoic acid. And then acetyl L-carnitine. So think about acetyl L-carnitine. Acetyl, right? That's the prefix of acetylcholinesterase, right?
Mm-hmm. So
you could think about that acetyl being possibly acetyl L-carnitine being a precursor to acetylcholine, right? So if you're helping produce a lot of acetylcholine, then you're probably going to help prevent memory, dysfunction. So acetyl L-carnitine, think of acetyl L-carnitine boosting acetylcholine production in the body.
Okay, that's one I've heard of people taking a lot.
Yeah.
Just in general.
Right. So a lot of people call it by its acronym ALC. But when combined with lipoic acid, you seem to get more improvement, and especially in animal models with optimizing brain function. So that's cool. And then another thing is there's a marker. We've talked about this in a number of podcasts. You can think about it as an inflammatory marker, homocysteine levels being high in the body, right? A lot of times I'll run those, see what the homocysteine levels are in patients.
Mm-hmm.
And those homocysteine levels are highly indicative of cardiovascular disease and cognitive dysfunction, and ALC seems to help knock those levels down. And ALC can help prevent, reduce the neurotoxicity of cellular debris. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, this amyloid keeps coming.
Yeah, and that's it's a main
Yep.
indicator or marker of Alzheimer's. And then there's another compound we talked about this too when we were talking about adaptogenic herbs in one of our podcasts. Is Panax ginseng, right? And so these compounds in ginseng seem to have memory benefits. So you'll see them, some of these herbal formulas to help with memory, especially in Chinese medicine. There's studies to support, taking ginseng. So one study here was ginseng taken over 12 weeks, gradually increased improvements as compared to people who didn't take it, and their improvement was in cognitive ability. Just, again, ginseng is very, very safe.
Yeah.
I won't talk much about it, but again, when you're talking about things like antioxidants, vitamin C and E come to mind. There are studies showing that, taking vitamin C and E help in Alzheimer's Alzheimer's patients in a number of ways. Again, what harm is going to be done with that?
Right.
Another herb out there is ginkgo biloba. It's a powerful antioxidant. Brings down inflammation. This herb has been shown to enhance memory. In one study, it was tested on patients with the mild to moderate Alzheimer's. That result was inconsistent. However, a subgroup of those patients where neuropsychiatric symptoms significantly improved cognitive performance over placebo. Another study found that ginkgo inhibited the amyloid beta production in the brain. All right, so here's my main favorite thing. I prescribe this compound, this plant chemical, to almost anybody who comes into my clinic with inflammation, and that's curcumin. And we've talked about it a number of times.
Yes.
Right. Curcumin basically lowers nuclear factor kappa beta, and what that is a molecule, an inflammatory molecule. If that level is high, it creates all kinds of inflammation in the body, and curcumin will lower that production. And so you can think about if that is like the what would you call that? The linchpin or the keystone, molecule in the body to lower inflammation, and it has multiple beneficial effects on the body. Everything that curcumin has been tested on that deals with inflammation, any type of disease or disorder that has inflammation related to it, which almost all of them do, curcumin has seemed to benefit that illness. And it is huge for neuroprotective effects in the brain.
Yeah.
So it's been found in multiple studies to reduce cognitive dysfunction, to prepare neuronal synaptic damage. It's been shown to reduce the cellular trash, so the amyloid plaque stuff. And of course, it lowers oxidative stress.
And that's something I can take every day with no negative side effects, correct?
Yep, that's right. I mean, the only way you're going to hurt yourself with that is probably drown in it somewhere, in a pool of it somewhere. But that's pretty much almost the only way. I mean, there are some things like curcumin, at least in theory, may thin your blood. So if you're going in for surgery and stuff like that, you may want to come off of it,
Mm-hmm.
Curcumin actually has an ability to chelate and bind heavy metals. And heavy metal, and that's a good thing. It may not be such a good thing if you're low in copper or iron, right? So there's some instances where you may want to back off of it. Curcumin, for the most part, with chemotherapeutic drugs, seems to be a great thing to do to help potentiate chemotherapy and help with cancer. But there are a few drugs where it may not be appropriate. So, so it's just, you have to talk to your doctor or somebody who knows about curcumin. Yeah, or somebody like me, a naturopath, a medically trained naturopathic physician will know that. And especially, here's the other thing. We've talked about this too. There are, with cancer specifically, there are naturopathic physicians who are trained primarily. They're called naturopathic oncologists, even though they would never say they treat cancer primarily, but they specialize in treating cancer from an integrative approach.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and always someone who knows you,
right,
the person, the drugs you're on, all that good stuff.
Right. What else? Curcumin is probably if I had to say what's my favorite anti-inflammatory, I think it beats out when you look at over a whole, all over the inflammatories, like the whole range of them, the whole gamut. NSAIDs, steroids, like prednisone and stuff like that. Curcumin should be the anti-inflammatory you're on, because it doesn't have it, compared to those others, just simple Tylenol, it does not have those negative side effects.
Damn, Kieran, you're laying down the law today. The one herb to rule them all.
The one herb to rule them all. The one diet to rule them all too.
Yes, yep.
Mediterranean diet. Unfortunately, the Mediterranean diet doesn't have a lot of curcumin in it, but modify your Mediterranean diet, eat a lot of turmeric, and a lot of those Asian culinary herbs have tremendous benefits. So add them to your Mediterranean diet.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about fish oil, omega-3s. Yep. I mean, there's the main thing I would say about this, omega-3s are the main fatty acid in the brain. So it makes sense, at least in theory, and there's a lot of science that supports it, is to make sure you're getting your fatty acids in. And there's a lot of studies on DHA, not DHEA, DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, that's found in fish oil, and it has been linked to improved cognitive function. And there's a lot of studies that support that.
Okay.
So.
There's plenty of options within your cupboard and your diet that can help.
Right. So this may be this next one may be what you're talking about here. As far as that made you tired, I don't know, but this is another plant compound. It's derived from the periwinkle plant, vinpocetine. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It has neuroprotective properties. You find in a lot of brain formulas, memory enhancing formulas. It's been shown in a few studies to help with memory impairment. So I'm not sure if that's the one you were.
It doesn't ring a bell to me right now.
Because those are the only. That was one of the other ones I was thinking of. What else? There's another compound. This one I just haven't used a lot of. It's usually in combination products and stuff, but it is called pyrroquinolone, quinone, PQQ. That's a better name for it. So, PQQ. It stimulates the growth of new mitochondria in aging cells, and that's the problem as we age. Mitochondria, we get mitochondrial dysfunction. So PQQ seems to help with mitochondrial function, which if you help with mitochondrial function, then again, you may help with preventing neurodegeneration.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there's some studies that seem to support that. So let's see. Here's a study supplement with 20 milligrams a day of PQQ resulted in higher cognitive test scores in middle-aged and elderly people. Doesn't mean that they actually had Alzheimer's, but it seemed to help with cognitive function. So that's good. And they didn't take a whole lot of that. I think those effects are going to be amplified with other compounds like lipoic acid and possibly CoQ10. Again, that enhances mitochondrial function. A lot of people have heard about CoQ10.
Oh,
So some other brain nutrients. There's another thing called phosphatidylserine and glycerylphosphocholine. You can think of these as phospholipids. These things help. You can think about them. A good way to think about these is helping with the cellular membrane. And the cellular membrane is all the cellular communication, the molecules and stuff have to go in and out of the cellular membrane for cellular communication to happen.
mm-hmm.
And phospholipids help with that. Glycerylphosphocholine is a significant one, and it's a big structural component of brain cells and their memory. And it's again, choline. Think about choline. This is another precursor to acetylcholine, right? So glycerylphosphocholine could help with boosting up acetylcholine. So studies support that. Let's see. Clinical study of 261 patients with dementia showed improvement in cognitive symptoms with an acetylcholine precursor. So that is going to be glycerylphosphocholine, choline, acetyl L-carnitine. You can think about your fish oil supplements, that type of thing.
Okay.
There's another compound, great antioxidant called astaxanthin. It's a red-orange pigment. It's in the carotenoid family. It's found in high amounts of microalgae and crustaceans and stuff. So you see a lot of astaxanthin in like it's like fish oil. It has a lot of when you see the astaxanthin, it comes in krill oil. So you see it in krill.
Yeah.
And so krill oil has a lot of these other brain enhancing nutrients like the omega-3s. Anyway, it's a powerful carotenoid. It scavenges free radicals. It's shown to cross the blood-brain barrier, so it can protect brain tissue in and of itself, very safe to take. This is a pilot study, 10 healthy subjects with age-related memory problems demonstrated benefit taking the supplement. They saw improvement on cognitive performance tests. In middle-aged adults, again, you saw improvement in cognitive performance taking astaxanthin. There's a number of studies that support it. And let's see. Some other compounds, I'll just briefly mention them since we're kind of running out of time here. But this is interesting. I mean, coffee and caffeine consumption. Right? So coffee, we talked about that with Jade on a podcast. We just talked about coffee. Coffee is what is it? It's the number one antioxidant Americans take every day for the most part. So it's the most consumed antioxidant, coffee. And it seems to enhance memory over time. So that's caffeine and coffee. Coffee's full of antioxidants, so it has a free radical scavenging type effect. May lower inflammation also. And then one of the things that is present in coffee that we talked about with Jade is a chlorogenic acid. That's in high amounts in coffee, and there may be some brain preservative effects there, both directly and indirectly. Another thing that a lot of people take, just had my glass today, is green tea. Again, these are the flavonoids. Enhance your Mediterranean diet with green tea. The specific compound in there is EGCG, and EGCG seems to, there's a lot of studies on green tea and EGCG for enhancing memory and suppressing the production of amyloid beta, and reducing neurotoxicity. And green tea is a very safe thing to take. We just talked about this on our last podcast about MS.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And drinking green tea. MS, again, that's a neurological disease. So, and again, green tea helps that. Resveratrol, stereotypically found in red wine or peanut skins, grapes. It's found in a Japanese herb called Japanese knotweed. A lot of the resveratrol is derived from that. It's associated with lower incidence of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Resveratrol is considered, I'd call it the classical anti-aging nutraceutical to take. And closely related to that is grapeseed extract. And again, grapeseed extract has a ton, some resveratrol in it, but a lot of other beneficial compounds in there that may reduce cellular debris in neurons. And then one of my favorite minerals, and I know it's
Sound
yours,
the alarm.
yeah, is magnesium. And magnesium, the specific magnesium I'm talking about here is magnesium L-threonate, because this actually crosses the blood-brain barrier, boosts magnesium levels in the brain better than other forms of magnesium. And magnesium improves cell signaling. You know, it's essential for neuronal and cognitive function. It's been shown to enhance long-term memory. So that learning and memory, that's great. And this is a very safe thing to take.
Yep.
I won't go into this, but you can, this is one of the reasons why I really like a good multivitamin. Good multivitamin is going to have a good amount of B vitamins in there. B vitamins have also been shown to lower homocysteine levels. And lowering homocysteine levels can improve cognitive function. Also, it has a cardiovascular effect when you lower them. But the B vitamins, all of them seem to have a benefit. B12, B6, folate, niacin. Just get a good multivitamin. But you can pick out each one of those B vitamins and look and see if there's any research on dementia and helping improve cognitive function. And lo and behold, there is.
Okay.
You can find that. So a good multivitamin really helps. Vitamin D. We've seen studies on vitamin D that it may help with clearance of the cellular debris, amyloid beta. And we talked about in one of our podcasts getting your vitamin D levels optimal, right? Mm-hmm. The typical range is between 30 and 100 on the scale. I forget the actual units, but on the scale, at least here in the U.S., between 30 and 100. What is it? I forget the units, but typically you want it between 50 and 80 on that scale, and that's going to be optimal. Let's see. Here's a study among 500 women followed for 7 years. Those in the highest quintile, 1/5 for vitamin D intake, had more than a 75% reduction in developing Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
So that talks about the importance of vitamin D.
Yeah, wow.
And vitamin D is very safe. Most people are deficient and subclinically deficient or clinically deficient in vitamin D. So that's huge. We spend most of our lives indoors. Very, very easy to take a vitamin D supplement. We briefly talked about CoQ10. CoQ10, you can think about it just enhancing mitochondrial function. But we also seen that CoQ10 and analogs, compounds similar to CoQ10, seem to improve memory and attention with people that took it. N-acetylcysteine, this is a great compound because it is a precursor to our main body's antioxidant, glutathione, and anything that can boost glutathione levels in the body is going to help with any type of inflammatory disease or disease of like metal toxicity. But glutathione deficiency has been associated with a number of neurodegenerative diseases. Very safe thing to take, NAC, N-acetylcysteine. And I think that's pretty much it. There's a number of other herbs out there. So blueberry extract, again, you can get this through the Mediterranean diet, eating your blueberries, your polyphenols, but blueberry extract seems to help with nerve function and neurogenesis. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
We've talked about multi-nutrient combos, and we've talked about a lot today, may seem to potentiate each other. So taking your multi along with some of the other things we mentioned today can really help. There's one compound that we've mentioned briefly that I want to talk about real quick, and that's nicotinamide riboside, and it's a form of B3, vitamin B3. This compound is really, really amazing, and it is one of the compounds that really kind of gets to the crux of aging, and so it affects certain proteins in the body called sirtuins that help keep your cells young and keep your body young. And so it's considered a big anti-aging nutrient. You'll see it combined with things like resveratrol, and we'll give it a product of this nicotinamide riboside with resveratrol to help slow down the aging process. So
Wow.
it's a really neat one. And
Yeah, it's one I've never heard of.
yeah, it's really, really cool to keep it on your radar. It's really getting a lot of good research on it, and it's been shown to help with all types of neurodegenerative diseases, all types of aging type diseases. Let's see. So here's a study. So 6-month trial, 26 individuals with probable Alzheimer's disease received this form of B3 and had no progression in cognitive decline and significantly better scores on a dementia rating scale compared with placebo. That's great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's the author is Demarin, Demarin, study from 2004. You see similar studies you definitely see it in animal models too, where where NAD levels prevented cognitive decline. And I actually gave a talk and talked about colostrum as far as helping with Alzheimer's disease. Colostrum is the first breast milk secreted after childbirth, and there's something called colostrinone, protein-rich peptide complex, where the research on this, it seems to have some pretty cool brain effects, and helps with mild cognitive impairment. May work better if you're taking it with other, like a good multivitamin, but it's one that you kind of wouldn't think of right offhand helping. But colostrum is a nutraceutical that may really help.
So if I pick that up at the store, where is my colostrum being serviced from? Do we know?
It's probably a that's a great question. I don't know, but it's probably dairy. It's probably a dairy form of cow form of colostrum.
Okay.
I'd say regular cow dairy. But it's a good.
I was wondering how free range it was, or what degree.
Yeah. Good question. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's like coming from like what other cow dairy, but that's a good question to find.
And all the preparation for the talk that never came up was, where are they getting this breast milk derived?
Right. But it's funny. You can flip the switch here where you say, well, yeah, it's kind of strange. Humans drink a ton of cow milk, but we're not really meant for cow milk. We're meant for human milk, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, colostrum. Yeah, I got to find that question out.
Probably best from the direct source if you take it directly.
Direct source. Yeah, that's exactly right. So that was a lot of information that we went over, but I wanted to go. The main reason, you guys don't have to remember any of this stuff really, but I just wanted to let you guys know that there's a lot more. Brian and I just on all these podcasts want to let you know there's a lot of natural stuff out there that has some evidence.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be the best or the greatest or the gold standard research studies, but almost everything I mentioned today is not going to be a problem for you to take and try. It's most likely not going to hurt you. There are cases where it can be problems, so it's best to talk to somebody in the know about it. But anyway, just know that there are other things out there. But I'd have to say, probably no conventional doc is going to say no about this. Is two most important things is the diet and the exercise.
Yeah.
For preventing cognitive decline. And I think another really good thing is really keeping stimulating your brain with academic activity and reading and that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Use all these
Yeah.
things to kind of empower you at whatever level you may be, whether
Right.
it's to your grandma who does have Alzheimer's or to you in a preventative measure or anywhere in between.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else, CUNY? I thought that was great.
No, that's it. I think that's it. Like I think hopefully in another 10 years, 20 years, we'll have a cure for this disease. I have seen yeah, one other thing. I do want to say this. There are anecdotal stories of people out there that, and maybe it's because of wrong diagnosis, that seem to reverse Alzheimer's, even though no conventional doctor would ever say that you can.
Hmm.
So there's a little bit of hope thrown at people who are dealing with this.
Yeah. Great. We'll end there. And thanks for listening, everybody. And we will talk with you next week.
Sounds good. Take care, everybody.